Welcome, everybody. We are so glad that you could join us for our second training in our webinar series where we're going to be discussing human trafficking asset mapping. My name is Kelly Kravitz, and I'm the director of the Highly Mobile and At-Risk Student Programs Division at the Texas Education Agency, and thrilled that you ESC leaders are here with us today. As a bit of housekeeping, we would love to know who is joining us today. So please do provide your ESC and your name in the chat box. We would also love to know how you heard about the webinar series, so please let us know how you heard about it. And to cut down on background noise, just a friendly reminder, please keep your microphones on mute. And just a brief objective. So we are a collaborative work group that is committed to increasing awareness about human trafficking prevention in Texas schools and equipping you and empowering you with the necessary information to combat trafficking. We are a collaborative group, the Office of the Governor's Child Sex Trafficking Team, ESC Region 12, ESC Region 14 and the Title IV Initiative, TEA, and numerous other stakeholders have partnered together and are working on this very, very important issue. And something that we've identified in our collaboration and work together is the need for more training and the need for more information. And so this webinar series is to support you in that. And throughout this year, we will be training the first Friday of every month from 10:30 to 11:30. We do have a couple presentations like this one here today that is for you at the ESCs only. We really think that it's important to equip you with asset mapping. You're going to be hearing from Region 12 and the work that they've done with the Office of the Governor so that you can also begin to do this work in your own region. And then many of the other trainings that we have offered are going to be available to LEAs as well. And as you can see here on this slide is a flyer of the upcoming series. Our next training will be on December 4th from 10:30 to 11:30. We'll be giving an overview of human trafficking. So again, we are thrilled that you could join us today. We did kick this off in August and September, where Abby Rodriguez from my team with Region 14 provided an overview of the Texas Administrative Code 61.1051 and all of the new commissioner rules and related requirements concerning human trafficking. And if you've missed that presentation, no problem at all. We do have that posted on TEA's website as well as Region 14's website, and you can find that information in the chat. Again, thank you for being here today. Thank you for the important work that you do. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Heather Wheeler at Region 12.
Hello, everyone. I am Heather Wheeler. I'm education specialist working at Region 12. And just to kind of give you an idea of what we're going to visit about today, our objective is to give you the tools to conduct your own asset mapping in your region. If for some reason now's not a good time to do that, we're also going to share out some data that we collected to help inform the work that you're doing surrounding human trafficking in your own region. We hope that you will identify a point of contact or more than one. For example, Jenny and I, we are actually 2 points of contact for our region. So whoever needs to be the point of contact for your region for human trafficking. And then understand the procedures that we used, again, so that you have the tools necessary to conduct your own asset mapping project. We're going to briefly go over the governor's office overview and how they intersect with the work that we did. We're going to give you an outline of our project and how we built it. We're going to share some of those results that we collected and then some asset maps that we produced here at Region 12.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I am not going to spend a lot of time talking about the child sex trafficking team's strategies because we covered that in a previous meeting with you guys, with Abby and myself and Kelly earlier on. And so I don't want to take up a lot of time because we have some great things to talk about today. But I just wanted to just bring forward that our team has strategies around the areas of protection, recognition, recovery, supportive healing and bringing justice. And that entails funding some prevention programs, the See It tool, which many of you have heard about, and some of you, I think Region 20 is actually training on that tool with school districts, and recovering. So we're going to talk a little bit about care coordination and our efforts with that today, because I think that's where we all need to be more collaborative in this effort. And then we fund lots of drop-in centers, emergency shelters in the supporting healing, making sure our partners are trauma informed, and providing all sorts of training for prosecutors and law enforcement in the bringing justice part. So if you want to know more about our strategies, I can drop our website into the chat box, and you guys will be able to visit the team and see all the great things that we're doing. Next slide, please. So I wanted to take just a minute. My name is Debbie Solcher, and I'm the Central Texas Regional Administrator for the Governor's Office Child Sex Trafficking Team. And our team has broken the state up into 5 regions. And so there is one of me in every region. And they're all on the call here today. And I wanted to take a minute for them to introduce themselves so that you can identify who your regional administrator is. Because if you decide to take up the mantle that Region 12 is putting out there today, then you would want to contact your regional administrator, and hopefully that will become part of the strategy to have regular contact with that person so that you can understand what's going on with resources within the area, within your region, around this topic. So my particular area is from Waco to San Antonio. So I have 41 counties within that area. So Region 12, the work that we did together was born out of this. So if you guys, my fellow counterparts on the team, will introduce yourselves, that would be great so people can see who you are.
It helps if you unmute. Hi, I'm Tommy Grover. I'm the North Texas Regional Administrator, and I have the periwinkle color. I hope that it looks periwinkle to you. In the Northern region, I have 48 counties around the DFW Metroplex. And so I know I have ESC 10 and 11. I may have parts of others of you in that specific region. I'm as far west as Will Barger County.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So my name is Christian Benavides, and I'm the Regional Administrator for South Texas. And as you can see on the map, that's, I have 34 counties in South Texas.
Hi, everyone. I'm Janet Casper, and I'm the East Texas Regional Administrator. So I have, I guess, kind of the aqua colored counties. So I have 40 counties out in the East Texas area.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Veronica Lowenberg, and I am in the West Texas region, and I have 93 counties. So I have the rest of those, what's left from everyone else.
Thank you, guys. I know you guys will in the region centers will enjoy working with them as much as I do. And please don't feel too sorry for Veronica with the 93 counties, because the state was broken up based on population. So I know it looks like she has most of the state and she's overworked, which she is. But
Yeah. I just get to drive a lot.
Thank you, guys. Next slide, please. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the collaborative efforts that we have within our areas. So you would have an understanding of why it's so important for you guys to be part of this work. We work with multidisciplinary teams and the Children's Advocacy Centers to create first responder protocols to ensure that no victim or survivor falls through the cracks, so that we know who these kids are, we're staffing them. We know that they go in and out of the life, and sometimes they need more assistance and more wraparound. So we really want to try to pull together teams of people so that that doesn't happen. And that means that all of us working together is really important. And you guys are a huge, huge part of that. As a former educator, I know very well how important it is to have teachers and administrators at the table. Next slide, please. So this is a little model of what our survivor care coordination looks like. We have care coordinators. The Children's Advocacy Centers are the folks that we're working with to be care coordinators, kind of like that air traffic controller over the team. And then we also have CSA advocates. We believe that trusted relationships are the secret sauce to what helps kids not be vulnerable to trafficking. And we know that educators are having those relationships, important relationships with the kids. And so we have advocates that we have paid agencies around the state providing advocacy as part of our care coordination. And I just wanted you to be able to see the model that we're looking at. So we want to make sure that we provide that safety net for kids all the way through this, from the moment they are identified or recovered in a situation through that building resiliency and receiving services. And so by connecting, as Heather mentioned earlier, appointing a point of contact at the ESC to work with the schools, and then the ESC contact working with one of us as a regional administrator in your area, you guys will know where care coordination is currently active. We're working all around the state feverishly to build these teams, and they're in the 5 major urban areas right now, and then working in some smaller counties around those areas. And then we hope to have everyone on board at some point, but we're working on that. So you guys would have access to know who that is. So if your schools are contacting you with things that they're seeing, then we will know how to help direct that. So I just kind of wanted to give you a little brief overview of what that looked like, because it's a really big part of our collaboration. Next slide, please. So everybody knows how big Texas is, right? If we do it big or we go home. And so we're trying to do it big. So we're engaging all stakeholders that we can, systems around the state. We work very heavily with TJJD, the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, the DFPS, in making sure that they are part of this team, in order, because we know that their kids are very high risk. So I just wanted to use this slide to kind of show how important it is for the ESCs to be part of that team. What we do is to the asset mapping that Heather and Jennifer are going to talk about in more detail. We do on a wider scale basis with services around this population. So we're trying to figure out where the gaps are and build capacity. And that is part of what we will be doing as part of the asset mapping with the ESCs, to understand what resources are in the area that schools can tap into for education, for awareness, and additionally for resources. So again, we engage with the local CACs in our 5 regions in order to put together these care coordination teams and to assist them in helping to build that capacity. So work very heavily with TEA, so thankful for our partnership there, and then hope to strengthen the relationships with all 20 of you ESCs out there. You're so important. You provide services to 1,227 school districts, 900 private schools. There are over 5 million students in the state of Texas. That's a lot of children that we are all responsible for. And so it's really, really important that we are here to support you guys in that work, and in helping schools to understand what's going on with the kids that they have in their seats. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer and Heather to talk about the great asset mapping that we did as part of Region 12. And I just want to say I was very honored to work with them, and they just picked this up and ran, and it was phenomenal. And so I'm really thankful to be part of that with you guys.
Hi, my name is Jenny Yannick. I am a crisis response team leader for ESC Region 12, and I am a partner with Heather Wheeler and our LMHA partner, David Baker, with Safe and Healthy Schools and Counseling Services. And as we set this up, we all kind of agreed when designing this presentation that it's really important to keep the importance of this work right in the forefront. And one of the things that we discovered, and I really don't know if as project managers, we were really ready to hear some of the things that we did, because it really does bring the awareness to how important what we are going to be doing. And one of these stories that we came across was from one of our 5A schools, was a counselor who was at the elementary level. And as she was answering our interview questions, we'll be going over those in a moment, she talked about how she had walked with a young child at the elementary level who was in a very hectic environment and experienced a lot of adversity. And she handed her off to a very great partner at the middle school level, and kept tabs with her as best she could, knowing she was taking care of so many kids. And one day she read or saw on the news that a devastating thing had happened with a 15-year-old youth who was a female and was pulled over during a traffic stop. And at the traffic stop, obviously being 15-year-old and not being licensed, or not knowing that there was going to be a bad end, the 15-year-old went back to her vehicle and she retrieved a gun, where she ended her life in the presence of law enforcement after having been in the life as a human trafficking victim, as someone who was vulnerable to horrible things that happened to her. And we could tell through this counselor sharing this story how much it impacted her, how hurt she was, knowing that she wanted so much more for this young lady whose life was cut short in a horrible and devastating way. And we know that there are so many complexities with the issue of human trafficking in the state, but to know that our counselor, when we were talking to her, was going to live on and have that fear and that worry, really bolstered how much we really believe in what we're doing to try to help all educators come to understanding and have access to great resources for trying to end this and stop more devastating things from happening. So we wanted to share that story with you because it stuck out as being really important for Debbie and Heather and I when we were doing this work.
So just a quick outline of how we got pulled in on this work, and then also how we designed the project as a whole. So the whole project was born out of a conversation that we had with Debbie and with Abby when they came in to talk to our schools here in Region 12 about the state of human trafficking, and to give an update of where we are as a whole within this work. And so that's where this brainchild, if you will, was kind of born. So the way we designed the project was we wanted to make sure that we had multiple collection points, because we knew that some people would be willing to fill out a survey and some people would want to talk to us face to face. And so we wanted to give an opportunity for both things to happen. And so we started with a Google survey. We sent it to all of our Region 12 districts. We utilized our distribution groups, both our counselor distribution group and our school safety distribution group. And across the board on that, we got a 50% of our whole region to respond to that. After that, we did a cross section of interviews with districts. And to get those, I just set up our calendar and I sent it out and said, hey guys, hop on our calendar when you have a moment to visit with us about that. And we set up diverse questions for both the Google survey as well as for those one-on-one interviews. And then from there, we took time, and Jenny's really spearheaded this piece of it, that took time to build out maps and be able to compare the different maps for the different relationship building opportunities and different resource points that we have available to us across Region 12. So now we're going to take a brief look at our Google survey questions that we asked, and then also the results. We don't have the entire question listed out on here, so if this is something that you wanted to take as a map or a framework to do your own asset mapping in your region, if you want to send us an email, we will release those questions to you without any hesitation. So it was super important to us because we know that life in a small 1A school is very different from the life in a large 6A school. We wanted to make sure that we had diverse representation across the board. So as you can see from here, we have a really good representation, and we've even got our charter schools and our private schools pulled into this as well. On top of that, we wanted to make sure that both our elementary schools were represented, as well as our high school, and even those campuses where you have all pre-K through 12th on those, because again, the life in those and what you see within each of those different schools is very, very different. Okay, so this is getting into the meat of the questions that we asked. We asked if a reporting protocol was developed and if it had been communicated. And what we saw here was that a lot of schools said no, that it is not, either it's not been developed, or if it is developed, that it is not clearly communicated, i.e. the teachers, the educators don't know what to do with a situation that they may see. They don't know what protocol they should follow. And then it was super important to us as well to know how familiar were they with House Bill 111. And again, a large percentage of them said that they were not familiar with that. So that means that we need to do some educating on that side of things. We also wanted to know how often were they encountering a potential human trafficking situation. And a lot of people would not recognize human trafficking for what it is. For example, my family goes camping every year to Garner State Park. And normally when I walk through the park grounds, if I were to see an older gentleman with a couple of younger girls, I would probably not think anything was taking place. There was nothing going on. It was a grandpa with his granddaughters, right? That's just what I would naturally think. After studying human trafficking for the last year, when I encountered those types of situations, I'm immediately going to think, could that be something, right? So a lot of people are faced with situations that very well could be human trafficking. They just don't know it. So we wanted to know how many of our schools were seeing things that might be human trafficking, and a lot of them said that they weren't. Okay, so that tells me that we need to do some educating on human trafficking within our region to make sure that they know what are those signs. We also asked if a victim were identified on their campus, would they know what to do? And a lot of people said that they would, or they would somewhat know, or they were unsure if they would know what to do. So again, that goes back to those protocols and making sure that our districts have those and that our educators are aware of what those are.
So what we're looking at right now is some of the responses that we got that were a little bit, that just really stood out to us. And I'm going to go over a couple of those before just showing how we set up our Google Doc. It's not saying that you necessarily have to capture responses the exact same way that we did, but we had a great collaboration on that. And these are some of the things that they said to us in answer to the question, what is your biggest challenge or concern regarding dealing with human trafficking cases as they relate to student safety? How do we really help or find resources in our rural environment was one. Another one was the belief of some that this couldn't happen to a student in a private school, really trying to think that there's a certain profile or demographic for a victim of human trafficking and coming to the realization that there's not. Having everyone trained yearly about what to watch for. We don't want to miss any red flags. And when we have this awareness and we uncover the situations and working with our great partner here in our region, which is Unbound, there's such a heightened level of awareness and folks don't want to miss the red flags that could stand out. And the last one is getting students to trust school staff enough to report the abuse. Maybe it's happening to themselves or others, and that reporting piece and awareness of students for just safety issues altogether. We definitely want to make sure that we strengthen that, because so many times students are aware of things that are happening and don't know what to do with that to try to get more help. And next, I want to just show you how we set up the one-on-one interviews, how we kind of captured that just in a couple of screenshots of our process. This template was really easy to put together. We just replicated each of the question sets within which person or entity that we were going to be talking to. So it kind of looked like this. this Google Doc that helped us organize and capture the responses from the districts in our region. We were so glad we had, and I'll say this, it takes a lot of great relationships when you're talking to schools who want to do the right thing, but may be unsure themselves. So they were giving us a lot of honest feedback, and knowing that we weren't judging them, we weren't trying to do anything that was harmful. We needed to have that relationship to say, look, we need to know where you are so we can try to help you and provide what's best for you. And they were very forthcoming with that information. So we were really glad about that.
Yeah, if Jenny hadn't had these relationships already built with a lot of our counselors, and then also our nursing consultant here at Region 12, I don't think people would have been as willing to share real information. I think they would have been a little bit more guarded in that. So we were super duper blessed that Jenny has those really positive and great relationships.
I appreciate that, Heather. And we've thankfully grown that, because the more we have partners that are engaged, the more they're willing to know that we're all working together as a team. It's really important to have that team togetherness that we have now. And more things kind of stood out to us, even as we talked to nurses, we talked to other folks. This was, of course, opened up to lots of roles in our schools for what they were seeing and experiencing. We realized at our level, we can't make those good decisions if we don't know the needs of our people. So having this was exactly how our perspective was going in on that. And one of the nurses said the response to who would you turn to for help, 50-50 when she works with folks, some shake their heads, some are deer in the headlights. And then she responded, it's everywhere. There's all different kinds. And folks are saying and coming to this awareness, oh, we didn't think about that kind of trafficking, or realize that trafficking is not always about a vehicle. It's about the exchange, or the trade or sale of human life. So those were really big pieces that came to mind in the work that we were doing.
And the really nice thing about this being set up as a Google Doc is we were able to real time take notes together. So I could have it open, Jenny could have it open, Debbie could have it open. And depending on what stood out to each of us, we could add those kinds of things in the notes. It also made it really easy to go back through to kind of pull out some of these key phrases that we're going to be sharing with you here in a little bit as well. So as we caught something that really stood out, we would highlight it in a bright color so that we would make sure to remember that in either the presenting or in the passing of the information onto our leadership teams, and then also into Debbie's leadership teams as well.
And we unpacked it. We did a lot of great debriefing after the sessions to say, what did you hear? What did you learn? What's something that stood out? What can we try to work on or do better or to help? So that was really important in the process too.
So these are the questions that we asked one-on-one, and I've pulled out a couple of the key responses to share with you here. But we asked them, what you suspect a student is being human trafficked, what do you do? And one of our nurses we found were really in tune with their students and with their staff. And so one shared that it's not as easy as dealing with a child with a medical case. She shared that they would share information with CPS that a child may have shared with them about a mother who was taking her to a man's house every weekend. She shared that there was substance abuse, there was incarcerations involved with this situation, and within weeks of the report, the child was pulled from school. So we caught a lot of those kinds of stories that are completely heartbreaking and wrenching. Another nurse shared that she had concerns about the proximity of the apartments to the high school's location. And then also some warning signs, maybe it's that the phone that the child is carrying and the phone that's in that purse, right? Those may not have been things that I personally would have readily recognized as a warning sign, but having this information directly given to us via this avenue, I now have information that I can take into school board trainings about human trafficking that I can share with our superintendents. It gives me a voice to advocate for our Region 12 schools in this work as a whole. And so it's been really great information. All of these questions, I will also point out, they were completely conversational. So we didn't do it like a robot voice or anything like that, right? Like when they shared something that stood out to us, we dove deeper in that. So for example, when the nurse was talking about her concern about the proximity of those apartments to her high school facility, we stopped and we said, well, how close are they? And why are you concerned about this? To kind of dig a little deeper. I think it also helped the people that we interviewed articulate those concerns so that when they see them in the future, they may be better able to share that information with their administrators as well. Sorry. So who do you turn to for help? And this was really exciting and encouraging from an ESC lens, because a lot of them said that one of the first places they would come was to Region 12. So that, yay, that we're doing the right thing, right? A lot of them also said their local police departments would be one of the first ones. And one of the things that I will make sure and communicate to schools when I work with them directly in this work is that they need to build that relationship with their police department before they encounter a situation, right? Like we all advocate for that, but how many of our schools are actually doing that? One of our schools shared that they did contact a local police department about this, and the local police department said, well, I need evidence. So then that put our school into the information finding process, and that's where we don't want our schools to be, right? And so that means that we need to be, again, advocating that they build those relationships before they encounter situations. A lot of them said that they would work with Unbound Waco if they needed information. They would get their administration involved, and that they trusted their administration. But on the flip side, we also heard from someone that if they went to their administration, they would get comments, or they had received comments such as, that girl is just promiscuous, right? And so that really fueled my belief in the educating our school boards and our superintendents is such a vital piece of this work as a whole. And again, gave me tools that I could use in those administration presentations as well regarding this. We asked them, what are you doing for professional development and education for staff? And this is one area that I really felt was kind of a gray area. This is an area that we still need to ramp up quite a bit. A lot of people said they're using EduHero, and also that they are using Jenny's digital citizenship presentation, which I'm super excited to see that they're using resources that we already have here at Region 12. We asked, what are you doing for student education? And a lot of people were, again, this is another one of those gray areas, that they didn't have a lot of resources that they were using for student education. But what we can do on the flip side is take this information, and now we know the tools and the pieces to either A, be looking for, or B, that we need to take the time to sit down and build.
We also, and on that, I see in the chat where there are great questions about this. What the NCMEC video series, there are some building opportunities there for integrating those videos and having something that's more forthcoming for direct student education. I truly believe that that's a big place to start, is helping youth understand what and where dangers may be in person or online. We also have some resources from Unbound, and it's really important, I think, to try to find partners who have that level of experience. We're very, very blessed in McLennan County and having outreach across the region for Unbound. But those things, I think, are going to be developed and hopefully more integrated into safety efforts with students, so they can be aware, and it's not just something that's kept at the adult level.
Oops, sorry. We asked them, where do you need more assistance? And a lot of people, guys, they said, we don't really know yet, which is good. It's good to know that they don't really know that. But being aware of, those touch points. So one of the things that we've started doing through our Title IV work as a whole is we're doing office hours once a month, because that way when they see things, they're going to be able to get greater access to us. And when we see where they need that assistance, we'll be able to provide that as well. We also asked, what are you doing for parent education? This was another area that we felt was a little gray. They weren't really doing a lot for parent education. And so that's caused me to take a look at Title I and what they're doing with parent and family engagement as a whole, so that maybe we can find some roadmaps to help us in that piece as well. And then we asked them if the school had resources, who would be the primary person to contact. That way we found one human trafficking advocate within each of the school districts that we visited with, so that when we know of something, we know exactly who to go to as a whole. One of the things that we found too through all of this was some of the questions inform human trafficking work, that it also informs that school safety piece as well, right? So if you have your own police force, yes, it's going to have an impact on human trafficking as a whole, but it also tells me which of my schools don't have that, which means that might be a way that I can better support them. So yes, it's human trafficking, but it also gave us really great school safety data as a whole. We asked them if they had communities in schools program, and I'm aware of communities in school as a whole, but this really caused me to go, man, we need more of our schools in Region 12 accessing communities in schools. So one of the things Jenny and I was actually talking about earlier today is we need to get in touch and we need to learn more about this program so that potentially we can help connect more of our schools to that. One of the resources that we learned about right before this work, and it was probably through a conversation with Debbie that we found this, but the STAR providers in the district, and we asked this question to try to determine if there were any of our schools accessing this that they knew about it, right? We had just learned about it. I wanted to know if we were kind of late to the party and everybody else was already having, the grand old time with this or not. And so we asked this question, and I was really surprised to see 100% nobody knew what it was. And so this means that we've got to get this information out. Another thing that Debbie had told us about was the See It tool. And she's showcased it and she's walked us through it. And I've sat through, probably 6 presentations that now incorporate it. And most of our schools were very unaware of the See It tool, but all of them, once we explained what it was, they were like, yes, that sounds like a really great resource. And so now we're using the data we collected through this to potentially help connect our schools to the See It tool as a whole. And we're having conversations with others around the state about this as well. Another question that we asked was whether or not they had a nurse on campus. And as you would imagine, our larger districts, by and large, they said, yes, they have one. Your middle of the road school districts said that they probably had one, but it was being shared between multiple campuses. In our tiny school districts, some of them said, well, our cafeteria staff are the ones who are administering medicine and things like that. And so that just kind of gave us a good basis to understand the information that they shared.
Okay, so some of the observations that we had that really stood out, again, the things that we learned, I think just by listening were really, really powerful. And even just the conversation, just like Heather said, this is very informal to the degree that we knew what we wanted to get in terms of the types of information that's going to come in, but we learned a lot. The first one being that rural schools have, of course, the fewest resources and typically don't believe that a human trafficking case can or will happen in their schools. Although we have had some individual schools reach out after having intervened in a situation that very well could have been a human trafficking situation. So that awareness level is really building right now. Number two is that rural and small schools often, like Heather said a moment ago, don't have their own access to law enforcement. So building relationships there are extremely important for them, or finding better ways to bridge and connect when intervention is going to be necessary. Number three is that schools think that families need to be dealing with students' relationship discrepancies. So the perspective sometimes that this is a relational issue or someone just misunderstanding how they're interacting, such as if there's an older boyfriend or a questionable association, to say that in a little bit more of a canvassing term, that not wanting to touch it or not wanting to get near it is still very prevalent. Those types of relationships could be indicative of an inappropriate relationship or human trafficking, and there's just really a holdback for trying to even think in that direction. It's really hard for a lot of folks to comprehend. And this was one that did come out, and it just shows the flow of information. And it's one reason why it's super important for us at the regional levels to be very well connected with our state partners, to be very well connected with the work of the governor's office and the work of TEA. We're extensions of what they have coming down, and it's really important, pound for pound, how we reach out to our districts to say, hey, did you know about this great tool? Did you know about this training? This is something that came out of the 86 legislation. Everybody's needing to get on this and get it done together. And with that, encourage cooperation is what I try to call it, so that we know they're doing what not only do they need to do, but doing what's necessary for safety. And one of the things that one of our folks said, if it didn't come from the region, I may not know about it. So with a state the size of Texas, that filtering down of the information becomes really, really important. We had takeaways. The perspective that human trafficking could or would be counted as a crisis situation. That kind of flipped our lens a little bit, because our schools tend to rely very heavily on us for support, even if it's just some consulting. If they are going through a crisis event, they like knowing that someone is right there. That's a big relationship piece of that. And to realize that human trafficking could be a very strong crisis event, like it was for our counselor that we heard from when she lost her student. They need to know that they're going to have that support and that they know where to go afterwards. So that connection to suicide ideation, possibly for digital citizenship and safety, really needs to be formed early on whenever we're starting this work.
And I'll tell you, when we pulled out these pressing observations and findings, we literally, what we did was we took that Google Doc with all of our notes that we had on there, and we looked through it for the things that we had highlighted as wow, right? And then things that were repeated multiple times as well. So one of the things that we could see very clearly, both from the Google survey we ran, as well as from those one-on-one interviews, is nobody knew what a star provider was, right? So we need to learn more about this, and we need to make sure that we are incorporating that into all of our trainings to make sure that our districts know who and what they are. The biggest needs that we heard over and over and over and over was that they didn't know what the steps were. They didn't know what the policy or the protocol or who their community partners are. And so that's one of those big things that in every superintendent, in every school board meeting, that I tell them, this is the number one thing that I heard from your educators, from your counselors, are these things, so that they know, get on it right now, right? We also need to take a look at how human trafficking coordinates with behavior threat assessment teams and work. So that's another thing that Jenny and I have talked a lot about, and we make sure and mention in all of the threat assessment trainings that we do, is if we're doing a really good job with our threat assessments, we're gonna find things like this as well, not just our active shooters. We're gonna find those people who are in jeopardy of being trafficked. Trauma training is needed across the board, which was so wonderful for all of us to get to do the trauma sensitive schools training that we did earlier this fall. And then one of our biggest hurdles is helping faculty administrators understanding and seeing that human trafficking can be on the same level as child abuse and child sexual abuse. That's exactly how I took my the school board training and the superintendent training, is I have molded those two together so that they start to recognize that as abuse. And I use that language that human trafficking is a form of child abuse, so that they can start to make that connection directly as well. So from there, and when we did this, we did the survey, we did the interviews, and then we took all of the information and we compiled it into a report that we then gave to all of our leadership teams so that they could see what we had done, right? We just took like a week's worth of time. We need to make sure and tell them what we did with that week, right? And so we, from there, identified our next steps. And these were kind of the things that we came out of it with, was that we needed to identify tools and resources that are available by county, because what's available here in McLennan County, I can already tell you, is not going to be available in Bosque County. And so making sure that we have an idea of what those are so that we can communicate those to our schools when they call us for help. Creating resource guides for those counties, identifying and or creating resources for those various trainings. Remember, we felt like the gray areas were the student training and the parent training, for sure, that we didn't feel that there was a lot out there for them. And then collaborating with Title IV and the state initiative group to look at posters and other things like that as well, which we have done. One of the big things that we felt like we needed was a training so that people could know what those signs were, and then not just training for our educators, but also, again, for the school board and the superintendent. And I pulled in a lot of that data when I'm talking to them so that I have some oomph behind my words. I'm not just selling something pretty, right? Like here's what your educators say by and large, and things like that, so that they have those heavy hitting points that we collected from that as well. And all of the trainings have been super well received. Our community partners have been really eager to help us in the various trainings. For example, I'm partnering with Unbound on all of our superintendent trainings because Jessica Sikora just has this wealth of knowledge, and she can talk about this stuff, and she's super passionate, and she has, like I said, all the heavy balls to really pack that punch when she's talking to our superintendents.
Okay, before we go into actually seeing what the asset maps look like, I want to give you just 2 seconds of background to frame kind of how we got here. First of all, in reaching out and realizing the enormity of Texas, that's what really was biggest in my mind, and how to partner for making things better and stronger. And we started a organic network of regional counselor specialists several years ago, where we had a network of folks across the state who were talking about the same concepts and things and learning from each other very much. And that was something, and it's still something we have carried on today with a series of activities that has just made us all stronger. And Rod and Nancy are doing an amazing job with the Safe Schools Initiative, because they pretty much replicated that ability to stay connected and go forward. And it's, again, just making everyone much stronger. And when in House Bill 19, I'll say it this way to start this out, and you can go ahead and bring this one up for us, Heather, looking at our local mental health authority maps, because we had a great relationship, still have a great relationship with our Clara Center for Families, which is in McLennan County, which is also where Region 12 lives right now. So when I'm talking to those folks, I said, how many of my counties are your counties? And they said, we have 6 counties. I said, well, I got 12 counties. So that means that if I know you and I know the counties that you serve, I need to know the guys that are serving the rest of my counties. And I looked at the LMHA map and I went, whoa, that does not look like my map. This is not the Education Service Center TEA map that we abide by for the number of schools that I've got to take care of in 12 counties. And so I did a little homework on that, and we realized that the different entities, you can see, I think there's 30 different pieces to that LMHA map. we sat down, I got with my marketing team and I go, guys, I want to know who's covering Region 12. And I want to be able to find a name. I want to be able to find a website. I want to know everything about who's serving our people, because this is what I'm looking at. And it's way different than what's going on over here with our partners. And I need to know who they are. So we took their map and we decided that we were going to match it with our service map here in Region 12. And what we came up with was that 4 LMHA served our region. And we color coded in this format, so it's very easy for our school districts to see and know where they are, who they can go to. And as we look at this, we're glad to share, of course, so it's not so small on the slide presentation right now, but we got the name of the LMHA partner that served them. We got the address, we got the website, we got the phone number. And our LMHA partner, David Baker, who's serving us through House Bill 19, is going to be connecting with each of those other service organizations, the LMHA folks. So my schools, whenever they ask, who's my partner with this, who's going to help me, they can see it very clearly. And it shows us the composition of coverage that we have. And looking at Navarro County down there, up there in North Texas, and over the next couple of maps that we did in similar fashion, we learned something about who's serving the schools in Navarro County, because they're very closely looped into a lot of Dallas and North Texas area resources. So when we would offer things and they would say, no, thank you, no, thank you, I kept going, why are they saying no, thank you? Are they okay? Do they have what they need? Turns out they do, because they have additional partners who are serving them. So that was a really cool thing. The next time that we came together to look at the asset mapping possibility was with Debbie, when she said, hey, here's the Child Advocacy Centers of Texas map. And I said, again, wow, that is a big map. There's a lot that's going on in that map. And we were able to get Luisa Cunha to help us to vet the Child Advocacy Center of Texas map that we put together for Region 12 again. So I pulled up my map for Texas, our ESCs, pulled out my ESC 12, and this is what the Child Advocacy Centers of Texas map looks like for ESC Region 12. Again, color-coded, specific to the counties, shows them the name, shows them the contact information through website, through phone number, through location. And ideally, I want a person there, because we know that if they're calling us for help, I would love to be able to say, yes, I know who the Child Advocacy Center Crime Victims and Children office is for McLennan, for Limestone, for Falls, for Freestone, because we know the power of those relationships. And when I present it like this, not only does it help my folks who are in any of these counties, but should they move or be in a different school setting, if that changes, then they can know who to go to in Navarro County or Bosque or Lampasas or Bell. And those borders, which many times are very fluid and folks can hook up folks to others, but this is just a very concrete representation of who you can reach out to and get the support you need. It goes a little bit to a different level of support than just a singular brochure or something that doesn't show everything that might a person need if they're going to be moving into a different school setting. We also did another one, and this is just the third.
Sorry, I'm going to interject just real quick. One of the things we found out through this is we actually have 2 counties within Region 12 that have no service from a CAC. So what that caused us to do is to take that to Debbie and say, hey, Debbie, what do we do for these schools? I mean, you can see the list right there. There are 10 schools listed right there that have no child advocacy center. And so she was able, through her network, to locate who's the best people for us to direct those
Thank
to.
you. No, that's excellent to point out.
That's a really good thing about the asset mapping, is that then you can identify where are our gaps and let's get those gaps filled.
Absolutely. And you did see on the map where it had that gold color, the wording was that even though there wasn't a specific entity named, that the schools in those counties could reach out to a neighboring partner. And again, it could be helpful if we made sure that those offices were connected and bridged with those schools so they could serve them. So thank you, Heather. That's a big point to reach out. We learned so much. I mean, for as much as we've done, I'm going to tell you, we learned more. Use the exact same concept with our Health and Human Services map. Again, not looking the exact same as what our TEA ESC regional map looks like. But once we layered it and we said, okay, who's serving our folks for Health and Human Services? Now, this was, again, a big aha for us, because our Navarro schools are served by a different agency and entity than all the rest of our counties for Region 12. And as we learn more about these entities and the agencies, what they can do, the more we feel like we're going to be able to help them be connected and help know people that are going to be in those offices for providing the service. So I took just these three for now, because I'm going to leave off with saying this. We've been approached by other agencies and entities. We'd love to see the counties that CIS are serving, the counties that, and I'm going to have, I think, some of those names coming up in just a moment, but Voice. We've had other folks that have learned that we're trying to give more of a dimensional awareness of who to be connected to. Really, if I had to say what asset mapping is, it's a dimensional awareness in your region of who your schools can be connected to, with relationships, extremely important. So we anticipate doing far more with our asset mapping efforts. And I also did just a little partner kind of worksheet document if someone wanted to use that. This took 3 seconds to make. And I kind of named it with a fillable PDF that's your district support system for whatever ISD it is that you have, where someone can go through and maybe even on an annual basis, if there were people that changed or emails that changed. We know we're all victims sometimes of folks changing roles, and this was my contact. Who's my contact now? Being able to be linked continuously to the agency support that there are. So there's a local mental health authority, the Child Advocacy Center, and Health and Human Services Office. This clearly could grow to more contacts. That way, if anybody had to change roles or change assignments, they would know who they could reach out to and have that layered support. And we at the region, of course, would help facilitate that. And I mentioned a moment ago that different agencies, of course, we're going to have a star provider map that's going to be hopefully coming out soon, the communities and schools. We're going to have Voice. We're going to have other resources and led, of course, by our partners at TEA and the governor's office. So we can just make that a lot more strong in our efforts.
Jenny, don't mind, pardon the interruption. I do want to recognize that STAR has changed their name as far as an organization. They're called FAYS now, FAYS. That's Family and Youth Success Program. And so they're formerly known as STARS. Just to help people with that, that's in the chat, a link to a brochure through Health and Human Services. I was a STAR caseworker. I would still call it STARS as well. Sorry for the interruption.
No, thank you, Rod. And that's so important. I mean, just, we have learning opportunities at every corner. And the more we come together regionally and at a statewide level, the more we can have those relationships with our districts where we can say, here's what we've learned, here's what we know about. We're all students of the process. So thank you for pointing that out. We've got a lot more work to do, but it's exciting because we know we've got great partners. We know that we can canvas and cover Texas if we're staying together. So really that's the biggest focus for our work.
So key takeaways through all of this is we need more training. And that could be training for superintendents, school boards, administrators, faculty, staff, parents, students. They all need it. And sounds like that's one of our biggest needs here in Region 12. The regional asset maps are going to be used to determine who are our partners in this work and identify those gaps and close those gaps. We think it's super important to assign a human trafficking prevention contact at each ESC. And that's one of the biggest things that Debbie has asked for, is to have that contact, but I think our schools need that contact as well. And then working to connect with your partners. One of the biggest things that I have connected to in the last 6 months is a human trafficking coalition. So working directly with those people who are not just in education, but that they are out and in the midst of the fight, so that you can help give that voice for education as a whole, and then take that information back to our educators as well. So these are your local task force and coalitions, so that you know who to connect with and where they are specifically located. And we can share this PowerPoint out afterwards as well. And we have the specific contact for each task force listed on the notes for the PowerPoint.
Looks like another asset mapping opportunity for me. So I'm going to be pulling out my template sheet for this.
We would be amiss if we did not recognize that the next webinar in this webinar series is scheduled for Friday, December 4th, and we will be covering Human Trafficking 101. I hope you guys will continue to connect with these because every time I talk to these partners, I am amazed at the information and the resources that I don't yet know, even after having worked with it for a solid year now. Debbie introduced some of our partners with the child sex trafficking team, but these are the contacts. And so I encourage you to get in contact with the individual in your region and make that connection with them as well.
And I do see Todd is asking in the chat, do the ESCs have an internship program for university students to potentially be assigned to this project? If not, Todd, we're interested, or I'm definitely interested. We would love to see ways to grow and connect with our universities because they provide so many great professionals in so many different areas in our region. So that is something Heather and I are going to hang on to. We'd love to continue that conversation with you as well.
Yeah, and so my previous life, I worked with higher ed, and so most of your university students are extremely passionate about this topic, and so they would, I'm sure, be really excited to connect. But I know that that's going to be a regional decision as to whether or not you're enlisting the help of interns. And so as from one region to another, I would encourage you guys to look into that for sure. And with that, what questions do you have? And please take time to complete the short survey that is linked on here as well. And if there are no questions, that's totally fine.
We may grab the Qualtrics link and put it in the chat if that's helpful for folks if they need to or want to do that. That way you can just grab it and be able to do that, or use your QR code that we have there from TEA.
And Tommy has shared his email in the chat for North Texas. So anybody in that area, please feel free to connect with Tommy. Yeah, Lana, we'll plan to send this out to you guys afterwards as well. And Christian has shared his contact information in the chat too, as well as Veronica, so you guys can connect directly to them as well.
And a gentle reminder, if you haven't put your name and ESC in the chat, we just want to make sure we know who was here. It's going to assist us to be able to send information out as well. And we'll try to get the link to the Qualtrics survey in the chat here shortly.
Well, Jenny and I will hang around here in case anybody thinks of questions as you're hopping off. If you don't have any questions, thanks for joining us, guys. We're super pumped for this work, and we would love to see you guys do something similar around your regions as well.